5 United States Code of the rules submitted by the Department of Energy relating to Energy Conservation Program, Energy Conservation Standards for walk-in coolers and walk-in freezers.
Mr. President,
Senator from Iowa.
today, Senator Shaheen of New Hampshire and I are introducing a resolution. That resolution recognizes April as Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. Far too many Americans have suffered as a result of this terrible crime. Sexual violence doesn't discriminate. Statistics show that 2 in 5 women and 1 in 4 men will experience sexual assault sometime throughout their life. And yet, those numbers can't capture the pain, the fear, and the lifelong impact that survivors endure. We must ensure that these brave survivors know that they're not alone. That means expanding resources for survivors, holding criminals accountable, and fostering a culture where no one suffers in silence or shame. So, Senator Shaheen and I urge our colleagues to recommit to this cause, not just for this 1 month out of 12, but every day of the year. To survivors of sexual assault, we see you, we stand with you, and we will not stop fighting for you. I yield the floor, and I yield the floor.
Senator from Washington.
Mr. President, I rise today to speak about the important role that Congress plays in ensuring our economy remains strong and very important for the American people to lower costs. That is why today I'm introducing legislation by myself and Senator Grassley. Congress has a duty to ensure that our country remains competitive and leads in the global marketplace. American families rely on our economy for goods and to make ends meet and to provide shelter. American manufacturers rely on an economy to maintain resilient supply chains, keep production lines open, and that means aircraft from Everett, Washington, or cars and trucks from Detroit, Michigan. American farmers rely on our economy to keep fields planted. Production in eastern Washington and northern and central Iowa depend on the cost of fertilizer, seed, and equipment. Small business owners across the country depend on consumer confidence in our economy so that they can keep sales and stay afloat. Sharp increases propose a major threat to that economy. Inflation and high costs are a threat to stability and prosperity of American businesses of all size, to our farmers and to our consumers. We live now in an interconnected world, a global economy, and advances in technology and transportation have brought that world closer and closer together. We have a global economy. That is why it is so important to have rules-based trading systems that have been in place since World War II, and it is the bedrock of a global economy. That is, to have rules. Rules-based trade is essential to have predictable and stable trade and promoting economic growth and development and global cooperation. No doubt, opening up markets has grown the pie, not just for those economies, but for the U.S. economy. When you establish clear rules-based mechanisms, you can also resolve trade disputes and encourage more investment and more trade. Businesses need this certainty to move forward with deals, to reach new markets and grow. But now we are seeing a barrage of tariffs on at least 185 countries. We cannot have arbitrary policies create chaos and uncertainty. These kinds of chaos and uncertainty kill business investment and make for very challenging stock market assessments of investments for the future based on predictability. The current approach, in my opinion, is outside the predictable rules-based system. It's arguable that the current approach is literally a misconstruction of statutory authorities. But what we know today for sure, is that 95% of the world's consumers are outside of the United States. That means the global middle class includes almost 4 billion people. Those are markets for American businesses, for farmers to reach, to grow, and prosper. According to the World Bank, in the recent decade, trade has lifted 1 billion people out of poverty. My colleagues here who've worked on deals in the past that opened up markets in places like Chile, Peru, Singapore, the Central America Free Trade Agreement, the update of the USMCA, all know that this hard work created economic opportunity. Our trade agreements helped American farmers export $176 billion in agricultural products last year. They helped ensure that the United States is the world's largest agricultural exporter, with soybeans and corn leading the way as the top export. I want to return to trade agreements. I want to open up more markets. I want us to have a robust export opportunity for the excellent U.S. manufactured and grown products. Our trade agreements have ensured that the U.S. remained the second largest exporter of manufactured goods in the world, $2.06 trillion in 2024. And it's clear today the United States must be competing hard to win in the race for emerging technologies like AI and quantum. Our foreign adversaries and our competitors are in this global race too. So that is why economic disruption puts America at risk. Straining ties with trade alliances also put us at a security risk. Trade wars have lasting consequences. Trade wars devastate Americans' working families and small businesses and manufacturers. Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution gave Congress the explicit authority to impose duties and regulate commerce, given the far-reaching impact to our national economy that I just mentioned. As ranking member of the Commerce Committee, and my colleague from the Senate Finance Committee, we both know how much our nation needs to continue to have interstate commerce and to have foreign commerce. Since 1930s, Congress has enacted or directed the President to negotiate trade deals, including authority to negotiate the agreements and impose or adjust tariffs. But I think these presidents have used this authority correctly by opening up markets, lowering tariffs, and establishing a rules-based trading system. The current approach, I believe, is creating uncertainty and certainly raising costs unnecessarily. Businesses rely on certainty and transparency from a rules-based trading system. So, how has Congress done on these issues? Well, it is time, I believe, for Congress to reassert ourselves in our constitutional duties. Article 1 of the Constitution also gave Congress the power to declare war. The Founding Fathers wanted to prevent any single individual from unilaterally committing our nation to war. The Founding Fathers wanted to ensure that we had a strong check and balance. I believe the same check and balance needs to exist now as it relates to protecting our commerce activities and any presidential overreach that is not a rules-based approach. Congress, in the War Powers Act, decided to reclaim its authority because they thought a president had overreached. Senator Grassley and I are trying to do the same thing today by introducing the Trade Review Act of 2025. Trade wars, which frequently trigger sharp price increases, foreign retaliation, and huge shock impacts to our economy, could affect the livelihood of workers, supply chain, manufacturers, and hard-won markets that American exporters have wanted to see continue to be open. I want to thank Senator Grassley for his leadership over many years for American farmers, for the people of Iowa, and for our country. I want to thank him for working with me on the introduction of the Trade Review Act of 2025 that ensures that Congress plays its constitutional role in making sure that, as our founding fathers intended, we set the duties and regulate foreign commerce. This important reassertion of Congress's constitutional role is important so we have a strong voice in trade policy. This legislation, as I said, modeled after the War Powers Act, says that a president must notify Congress within 48 hours of imposing or raising tariffs, provide an explanation of why they are warranted, and an assessment of their likely impact on American businesses and consumers. Our legislation, though, protects that constitutional authority by also saying these tariffs should be reviewed by Congress for approval or disapproval, and doing so is in the best interest of our country. Mr. President, I can't tell you how challenging I think competition in a fast-moving, information-age global economy is. We can't afford a trade war that lasts for 2 or 3 years, leaving our product off the shelves. We must reassert Congress's role over trade policy, ensure that a rule-based trade system is based on transparency, consistency, and the benefits of the American public. I thank the President. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Majority Leader?
Mr. President, Senate and quorum call.
We're not.
Thank you. Mr. President, as early as today, we expect to take up a budget resolution that will lay the groundwork for delivering on the Republican agenda. This resolution is the first step toward a final bill to make permanent the tax relief we implemented in 2017 and deliver a transformational investment in our border, national, and energy security, all accompanied by substantial savings measures and common sense reforms to our government. And at the prospect of this, Mr. President, Democrats are losing their minds. Their opposition to the 2017 tax relief, of course, is well known. Since the day the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was passed and before, Democrats have attempted to mischaracterize, and some would say flat out lie, about this legislation. fact, the Washington Post fact-checker has repeatedly issued 3 and 4 Pinocchio responses to Democrats' claims which center around the falsehood that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was about handouts to corporations and billionaires. The truth, of course, Mr. President, is not only did the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act cut taxes for every income group, but it was working families, not the wealthy, who received the greatest proportional benefit. Let me just repeat that. The truth is that not only did the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act cut tax rates for every income group, but it was working families and not the wealthy who received the greatest proportional benefit. Those, Mr. President, are the facts. But of course, the facts have not gotten in the way of Democrats continuing to claim that extending this tax relief is about handouts to billionaires. Democrats' latest hysteria is centered around the application of budget rules we'll use for this week's budget resolution. They claim that using a current policy baseline is somehow destroying Senate rules, even though the 1974 Congressional Budget Act, which governs this budget resolution, clearly states that it is the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee who determines the budget baseline used for budget resolutions. The senior senator from Vermont, who caucuses with the Democrats, confirmed that it's the chairman's role in a 2022 report when he was chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. And of course, Democrats themselves have previously advocated for the use of the current policy baseline. They basically invented it back in 1977, shortly after the Budget Act was enacted. Chairman Muskie, a Democrat from Maine and chairman of the Budget Committee, used a current policy baseline in his budget resolution because he thought it represented a more realistic benchmark. More recently, President Obama's fiscal year 2013 budget assumed $4.5 trillion of expiring tax cuts would be extended in the Democrats' baseline, matching current policy at the time. Jump forward to the Biden administration's most recent budget, in which Democrats explained that, and I quote, "Adjustments to the baseline are needed to better represent the deficit outlook under current policy and to serve as a more appropriate benchmark against which to measure policy changes," end quote. So, Mr. President, using the current policy baseline is not some bizarre new gimmick. I should also note, of course, that the Senate parliamentarian has deemed the Senate budget resolution, which uses the budget policy baseline, in order and ready for floor consideration. Democrats' sudden concern for saving money and protecting the character of the Senate is touching. Who would have guessed that the party that was so eager to tear down a fundamental Senate institution mere months ago by killing the Senate filibuster would suddenly develop such a passionate interest in defending the character of the Senate? But their hysteria is misplaced. Now, Mr. President, I do understand that Democrats are uncomfortable with the idea of tax relief. When you think that government knows best, and when your enthusiasm for new government programs is virtually unlimited, it's no surprise you'd prefer to maximize the flow of taxpayer dollars to the government. But Republicans believe fundamentally that Americans know best what to do with their money. And so no matter how many times Democrats attempt to distort or outright lie about what we're trying to do here, Republicans intend to deliver a permanent extension of the tax relief that we passed in 2017. Failing to extend this tax relief would result in a $2.6 trillion tax increase on those making less than $400,000 a year, as well as a $600 billion tax increase on small businesses. A typical family of four making $80,000 a year would end up sending an additional $1,700 to the government next year. $1,700. I'm quite sure they have better uses for that money than sending it to Uncle Sam. I said make this tax relief permanent, Mr. President, and I do mean permanent. Senate Republicans are united with the President in viewing a temporary extension as unacceptable. Americans should not have to live in fear of a tax hike every few years, and small businesses including family farms and ranches like those in my home state of South Dakota, need certainty about the tax outlook so they can plan for the future. Making the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent will ensure that Americans' take-home pay does not go down, and it will have significant economic benefits. The National Federation of Independent Business reports that making the Small Business Section 199A deduction permanent would result in the creation of an additional 1.2 million jobs annually, with that number climbing as the law goes on. And the Tax Foundation reports that long-run gross domestic product would increase by a substantial 1.1%. That means more jobs and more opportunities for American workers. And, interestingly enough, increasing federal revenues to the tune of about $3 trillion, which is the right way, Mr. President, by growing the economy. When the economy is growing and expanding, people are working, they're making money, they're taking realizations, they're paying taxes, and you know what? Government revenue goes up, not down, which is exactly what we experienced when we passed the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act 8 years ago now. Mr. President, as I said earlier, it was working families, not the wealthy, who received the greatest proportional benefit from that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And it is working families, not the wealthy, who will see the greatest proportional benefit from making this tax relief permanent. We are here to make sure that hardworking Americans have more breathing room, to make sure that our economy is providing them with jobs and opportunities, that they are not facing lower paychecks next year. Mr. President, I was proud to help draft the 2017 tax relief and put more money in American families' pockets. And I look forward to permanently extending it in the near future. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks.
Mr. President,
Democrat leader.
I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
So, Mr. President, yesterday, Donald Trump made one of the dumbest decisions he has ever made as president, and that's saying something. The tariffs Donald Trump approved yesterday are far, far worse than we thought. It's the largest tax hike on families since World War II. Yesterday was not Liberation Day, it was Tax Day. Middle class, pay more taxes, Donald Trump is telling you. That's what the day's all about. This morning, naturally, the markets are plunging. The Dow was down 800 points. The S&P is already on track for its worst day in years. Donald Trump has single-handedly created a financial forest fire. Trump called yesterday Liberation Day. Nobody was feeling even close to liberated. Quite the opposite. American families are learning the hard way that Donald Trump has them right in the middle of a pincer and is squeezing them on both sides. On the one side, Donald Trump is pushing tariffs that will cost working families an extra $5,000 a year. And by his own admission, he, quote, could not care less. On the other side, Donald Trump is working with Republicans to gut vital programs working families rely on, like Medicaid, Social Security, veterans programs. So there's a pincer. Trump's tariffs raise costs and pick people's pockets on one side. And Trump's budget and his budget cuts are taking away health care and benefits and veterans care on the other side. Now, there are smart ways to use tariffs, and there are dumb ways to use tariffs. Donald Trump is using tariffs in the dumbest way imaginable. In fact, Donald Trump slapped tariffs on penguins and not on Putin. Trump sanctioned the herd in McDonald Islands, only inhabited by penguins. And that's what happens when you don't have a clue as to what you're doing. You fire air traffic controllers, dismantle disease outbreak monitoring, sabotage Social Security and VA operations, censor climate data, defund public schools, an ND trade war on penguins. What is going on? Prices on groceries, prices on electronics, appliances, metals, beer, furniture, fertilizer, and so much more will go up. People's retirements are in peril as markets are in turmoil across the globe. And Donald Trump says, I couldn't care less. That's his quote, America. You're getting squeezed on both sides by his tariffs and his budget. And he says, I couldn't care less. The American people are learning quickly that Donald Trump is breaking all the promises he made in the campaigns, and he's not on their side. He couldn't care less. It's truly unbelievable to watch the sheer destruction Republicans are inflicting on Americans. We aren't even 100 days into President Trump's second term, and the Republicans this week will plow ahead to take away people's Medicaid. They're letting Elon Musk sabotage Social Security. He says it's a Ponzi scheme. He says he's okay if it's eliminated. What do these rich people know about how middle-class people struggle? It's a little coterie of billionaires that's running policy, and as I said, the middle class is getting squeezed by the pincers on both sides. What are they doing? Firing tens of thousands of epidemic responders, healthcare workers, food inspectors, abandoning veterans. And now, on top of all of that, it's been bad enough before, quote, Liberation Day, which is tax day. The Americans are going to pay $5,000 a year through his tariffs. For what? Why are they doing all this? Why would they do all this? Why would they hurt people, so many people, in so many ways? Why would they have that pincer squeeze them? I'll tell you why. One thing, one reason. Tax breaks for the billionaires. As I said, this is a coterie of billionaires running the government. Trump and Musk and Lutnick and so many others. You've heard the net worth of his cabinet. It's incredible. Cutting taxes for billionaires makes them squeeze the American people. It's utterly disgusting. President Trump should reverse course on his disastrous tariffs immediately, or else he risks plunging America into a recession. Some of the leading banks, the leading financial analysts, with no axe to grind, have greatly increased the odds that we will have a recession because of what Trump is doing. What president walks mindlessly into a recession, which means it's harder to get a job, harder to keep a job, harder to pay the bills? What president does that? So I am calling on the House and Speaker Johnson, given how bad Trump's tariffs are, they now know it, to come back into session and vote the Senate's bipartisan bill undoing the tariffs on Canada, the bill we passed yesterday with bipartisan support, because a few Republicans had the courage of their convictions and voted against the president and for Senator Kane's very, very timely and needed bill. If the Speaker really cares about the American people and the costs they would bear by these tariffs, he should call back the House and take up the Senate bill immediately. The American people care about one thing above all, and they care about a lot of things. But at the top of the list is inflation. That's the number one thing on people's minds. We've heard that over and over again on November's election day and ever since. And Donald Trump said in his campaign he'd reduce prices on day one when he got elected. He's doing just the opposite. He's not just reducing prices, he's dramatically raising them, $5,000 a year on the average American family. And by his own admissions, quote, Donald Trump said, "I could not care less." On the budget, this week, Donald Trump and the Republican Party are hitting Americans with a brutal 1-2 punch. On one side, Trump has hit Americans with a massive tax hike through his extremely dumb tariffs. On the other side, they're unfocused, just unfocused. On the other side, Senate Republicans are getting ready to take away vital programs, throw people off Medicaid, all so they can give massive tax breaks to billionaires. It's a brutal Republican pincer move, with American families trapped in the middle. Trump's tariffs raise costs and picks people's pockets on one side, and Trump's budget cuts are taking away health care and benefits and veterans care on the other side. If Republicans pass their agenda, 80 million Americans will be at risk of losing coverage. Rural hospitals, community health centers, nursing homes will be at the risk of closure. If Republicans proceed this week, Senate Democrats will expose their agenda for the American people to see. We will pick their bill apart. We will put them on record. We will force Republicans to explain in multiple ways again and again and again why they want to cut taxes for the rich at the expense of working people. Senate Republicans are so hell-bent on cutting taxes for billionaires, they seem ready to detonate the rules of the Senate and break their word to get it done. Republicans spent years preaching about preserving Senate rules and protecting regular order, but now that their billionaire tax cuts are on the line, the rules don't seem to matter for them. We all know what's going on here. We know. Senate Republicans don't want to admit that their plan to make these tax cuts permanent will add $37 trillion to the debt. $37 trillion. That more than doubles the totality of our national debt today, more than doubles it. It is reckless and it is dangerous. So Republicans, in essence, want to pretend like their trillion-dollar tax cuts are free, like magic. Or, as Chip Roy, one of the most conservative Republicans around here, said, like fairy dust. A middle school math student could tell you this is ridiculous. House Republicans must tread carefully. I say that to them over there, particularly the ones on the hard right. If they go along with this dangerous gimmick hatched by Senate Republicans, they will pave the way to add $37 trillion to the debt. Republicans will forever incinerate any credibility they have to complain about debt and deficits. When you go home, Senate Republicans, don't tell your constituents that you want to cut the debt. $37 billion. And far worse than that, these billionaire tax breaks and the gargantuan deficit that they will create will haunt our children and our grandchildren with sky-high interest rates, a hobbled economy, and rampant inequality. It's not the world I want my grandchildren to grow up in. House Republicans must not go along with this dangerous plan by Senate Republicans. I yield the floor and note the absence of quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Osterbrooks.
Mr. President.
Senator from Kansas.
Mr. President, I understand we're in a quorum call, and I ask unanimous consent that it be lifted.
Without objection.
Mr. President, thank you. We are in the process of reaching a conclusion and debating at least the first step of, maybe now the second step of reconciliation, an opportunity for us to make the tax code more permanent, an opportunity for us to reduce spending and to hopefully get the budget better in balance, to bring our debt under control. But today I just want to highlight a small portion of what this debate ultimately will consider, and that's the issue of Medicaid. Mr. President, I come, as you do, from a very rural state, and Medicaid is a component of how we provide health care to low-income individuals and how we care for and provide medical care and treatment for those with disabilities. And I want to highlight from my own personal point of view how valuable that is, the necessity of us finding ways for low-income individuals and individuals with disabilities to be able to access health care. And as this conversation and debate continues, I want to make certain that my colleagues know, in my view, the value of making certain we do no harm to those in desperate need of health care in Kansas and across the country. I'm certain, perhaps without a doubt, there are flaws in the system and abuse that occurs, and our focus should be on eliminating those flaws and that abuse. And, Mr. President, I want to also talk about another aspect of Medicaid funding. A lot of what I've worked on as a United States Senator, and before that as a member of the House of Representatives, is trying to make certain that rural America, rural Kansas in particular, has a future. That the community that I grew up in, now population less than 2,000, has a future, an opportunity for people to come there, live there, raise their families there, educate their children there, to retire there. Rural America is hugely important to me and, in my view, hugely important to the country. One of the challenges we face in rural Kansas and Kansas generally is access to health care. And our community hospitals are hugely important. Our ability to maintain those hospitals and keep their doors open is a major priority for me. During COVID, we took extraordinary steps to make sure we didn't lose a health care provider and that the citizens of Kansas and the country could access health care. One of the components that that pays for that health care is Medicaid. It's not the hugest component. Medicare, private insurance, other sources, private pay, are utilized for the hospital to generate the revenue to keep their doors open. But this keeping of hospital doors open matters. As I stated, my goal of making sure that rural communities have a future, that future disappears in the absence of access to health care. And so a significant portion of that effort of mine to preserve, protect, and defend rural Kansas, and our state generally is rural, is to make sure that the hospitals have the capability, the revenues necessary to provide the services that the community needs. Medicare is a component of that. 9% of hospital revenue, 9% of hospital revenues come from Medicaid. It's also true that Medicaid only covers 65% of the costs of the health care provided to someone who receives Medicaid benefits. The average operating margin for a Kansas hospital is a negative 7%, meaning that the revenues don't cover the costs. And there's $1.1 billion in uncompensated care. In other words, the hospitals of Kansas, our healthcare providers, have a shortfall. They take in a certain amount of revenue, but that revenue is $1.1 billion for uncompensated care. That revenue doesn't exist. 8 hospitals have closed in our state since 2015. I've visited every hospital in Kansas, most of them numerous times. I've talked to hospital administrators and patients and board members and the CFO. And one of my standard questions is often, so are you in the red or the black? And the most common answer to that question is, well, depends on what day you ask. My point in making these statements is that as we debate reconciliation and as we debate the instructions, in the case of the House, instructions to the Energy and Commerce Committee, and in the Senate, instructions to the Finance Committee, those instructions in the bill that we're considering right now are significantly different. The instructions to the House Energy and Commerce Committee is to cut $888 billion from Medicaid. The instructions to the Senate Finance Committee is to cut $1 billion. Now, these are both, in both these circumstances, these are minimum amounts. But I wanted my constituents to know that, in my view, before this product is concluded, before this legislative endeavor is included, and we've sent the instructions to the committees, and the bills come back from the committees I want to make sure that we take into account the importance of people who are low income and have disabilities, and the importance of Medicaid to them, but also the broader issue of what it means to a community to lose its hospital. Often that hospital is the largest employer in communities across Kansas. That's a component, but the reality is that our citizens move away. If you're a young family and you're looking for a place to live, or you're a young family that has grown up in a community in the absence of access to health care, and it's broader than just hospitals. It's the hospital, it's the nursing home, it's the community pharmacist, it's the physician, it's the nurse practitioner, it's the chiropractor, it's the optometrist. All those individuals and their professions matter to whether or not communities across my state will be around for time to come. I want to highlight this issue today because the process is beginning that will set the stage for whether or not the future is bright for individuals and the communities they live in Kansas and across the country. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Majority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just listened to my colleague from Kansas and just how commendable the example that he has set to go and visit absolutely every one of the single hospitals in the state of Kansas. That's an example for all of us, to get out and talk to our constituents, listen to what they have to say. And the senior senator for Kansas has, I think, set an example for all of us. He visits every county in his state repeatedly, yearly, and it's a model for all. So I'm so happy to hear him address these issues in this body this morning. Mr. President, I also heard the speaker speak, who was the senator from New York, Senator Schumer, and what I heard him do is something different. What he did is he mischaracterized a budget term called the current policy baseline. First and foremost, the Budget Committee has consulted with the Senate parliamentarian on the substitute amendment that we're bringing to the Senate today. The parliamentarian has deemed it appropriate for consideration under the Congressional Budget Act. The Budget Act is also clear. The Budget Committee chairman decides the baseline. I served in this body when it was the Democrats arguing in favor of the current policy baseline. That was in 2013, when President Barack Obama was in the White House. And the Obama administration and the Senate Democrat majority at the time argued that a current policy baseline was, quote, the appropriate reference point when it extended existing tax policy. Senate Republicans are simply following the law and the standard that the Obama administration wanted followed in 2013. Current policy baseline is how we make the tax cuts permanent. It is how we stop a $4 trillion tax increase, the tax increase supported unanimously by today's Senate Democrats. Because for the Senate Democrats, their favorite day is coming soon, Tax Day, April 15th. And millions of Americans today are filling out their tax forms. People are going to spend time this weekend trying to get it right. And as they do, I ask myself and wonder if these people that are working so hard at home, hardworking people earning money and having to fill out their tax forms, if they realize that Democrats right here in the United States Senate want to raise those taxes by a cumulative number of $4 trillion. Look, a $4 trillion tax increase on American families would be devastating. Senate Republicans are fighting against it. Republicans want to make the 2017 tax cuts permanent. We want to reverse the Democrat failures of the past 4 years. We're focusing on getting America back on track. Let's look at the tax cuts that occurred a number of years ago. Tax reform restored fairness and simplicity to the tax code. Americans are better off because of it. It's one of the things that resulted in the best economic times of my life. Within 2 years of passing the tax cuts, the United States added millions and millions of new jobs. Unemployment fell dramatically to its lowest point in 50 years. Many businesses grew, invested. Most importantly, hardworking Americans had more money in their pockets to spend. In Wyoming, I heard of one local business owner who used the tax cuts to give his employees a raise. He also expanded his business. More jobs, more economic opportunities for people in his part of the state of Wyoming. This is what happens when Washington taxes less and taxpayers get to keep more of their hard-earned money. It's good for families, good for businesses. It is good for our nation. In Wyoming and across the country, millions and millions of workers were benefited from the higher pay, the bigger bonuses, and the best opportunities that come from lower taxes. By making these tax cuts permanent, businesses and families will get the stability and the certainty that they need in order to thrive. Like 90% of Americans saw their taxes go down because of tax reform. It would be disastrous for the tax and spend Senate Democrats, those who brought us the highest inflation in our lifetime, if they were to choke off the chance for Americans to keep more of their hard-earned money. American families would see their taxes go up if the Democrats get their way. 20 million businesses would see their taxes go up if Democrats get their way. 6 million jobs and $540 billion in wages could be erased if Democrats get their way. In all, families, workers, and job creators are facing a $4 trillion tax increase. When Republicans passed this Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she was Speaker of the House at the time of California, famously dismissed the savings and the bonuses and the benefits. She said that these wins for workers, she described them as crumbs. Democrats continue to dismiss the burden of higher taxes. Listen to what Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts said. She said, cutting taxes was nothing more than tossing a few crumbs at the American people. Well, listen to what Senator Cory Gardner of New Jersey said. He blamed workers who received bonuses from tax reform for what he said, driving up the debt. Don't recall him saying that in his last 25 hours on the floor of the Senate. Didn't repeat it again. Democrats are out of touch with America's families. That's what's happening here. It's been proven by the results of the November election, and their condescending liberal attitude is a threat to the American dream. They just think they know better than everybody else. It's wrong for Democrats to force hardworking taxpayers to pay for wasteful Washington spending. But fortunately for the hardworking taxpayer of this country, President Trump is in the White House, Senate Republicans are in the majority, and common sense is coming to Washington. Senate Republicans are going to continue to put an end to this wasteful Washington spending because we stand with American workers, with the job creators, and with the small businesses of this country. Hardworking taxpayers are soon going to see where each and every senator stands. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Senator.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to complete my remarks prior to the scheduled roll call vote.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I rise to urge my colleagues to vote in favor of the motion to invoke cloture on Dr. Mehmet Oz, who is nominated to serve as administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS. The CMS administrator is responsible for overseeing health care programs that cover tens of millions of Americans, including Medicare, Medicaid, and the Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP. At his hearing, Dr. Oz spoke strongly about his desire to modernize CMS and encourage a healthy lifestyle for all Americans. His vision for treating the underlying causes of chronic disease and equipping providers with innovative technologies to serve patients will also be a much-needed sea change at CMS. I'm confident that his years spent as a leading physician and public health advocate make him duly qualified to accomplish these goals, and I look forward to working with him if confirmed. Dr. Oz clearly met the standard of the Finance Committee's arduous nomination process, and I thank him for the diligence and accessibility he displayed during the extensive meetings he had with committee members and staff, in addition to responding to hundreds of questions for the record. I strongly encourage my colleagues to join me in advancing his nomination. I yield the floor.
The clerk will read the title. The clerk will read the title for the joint resolution for the third time.
H.J. Res. 24, providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5, United States Code, and so forth.
The question occurs on passage of the joint resolution. Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal. Ms. Blunt-Rochester, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Brett, Mr. Budd, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Marino, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young, Senators voting in the affirmative: Barrasso, Capito, Haggerty, McCormick, Moran, Scott of Florida, and Sheehy. Senators voting in the negative: Gillibrand, Hassan, King, Lujan, and Rosen. Mr. Kramer, aye. Mr. Wyden, no. Mrs. Hyde-Smith, aye.
Ms. Warren, no. Mr. Justice, aye. Mr. Warnock, Mr. Warnock, no. Mr. Cruz, aye. Mr. Wicker, aye. Mr. Graham, aye. Mrs. Fisher, aye. Ms. Cantwell, no. Mr. Hickenlooper, no. Mr. Moreno, aye. Mr. Crapo, aye. Mr. Mullen, aye. Ms. Baldwin, no. Mr. Tuberville, aye. Mr. Murphy, no. Mr. Marshall, aye. Mr. Husted, aye. Mr. Johnson, aye. Mr. Budd, aye. Mr. Rounds, aye. Mr. Risch, aye. Mr. Daines, aye. Mr. Kennedy, aye. Mr. Paul, aye. Ms. Collins, Ms. Collins, aye. Mr. Kane, no. Mrs. Moody, aye. Mrs. Brett, aye. Mr. Whitehouse, no. Ms. Ernst, aye. Mr. Padilla, no. Mr. Cornyn, aye. Mr. Welch, no. Mr. Durbin, no. Mr. Schiff, no. Mr. Kelly, no. Mr. Sullivan, aye. Mr. Banks, aye. Mr. Thune, aye. Mr. Curtis, aye. Mr. Lee, aye. Mr. Cassidy, aye. Mr. Peters, no. Mr. Cotton, aye. Mr. Langford, aye. Mr. Kim, no. Mr. Reed, no. Mr. Hoven, aye. Ms. Cortez Masto, no. Mr. Grassley, aye. Ms. Lummis, aye. Mr. Ricketts, aye. Ms. Slotkin, no. Mr. Young, aye. Mr. Booker, no. Ms. Smith, no. Mr. Markey, no. Mr. Schmidt, aye. Ms. Duckworth, no. Mr. Bozeman, aye. Mrs. Blackburn, aye. Mr. Tillis, aye. Ms. Blunt Rochester, no. Mr. Schatz, no. Ms. Murkowski, aye. Mr. Sanders, no. Ms. Klobuchar, no. Mr. McConnell, aye. Mr. Schumer, no. Mr. Scott of South Carolina, aye. Mr. Hawley, aye. Mrs. Shaheen, no. Mr. Blumenthal, no. Mr. Ossoff, no. Mr. Warner, no. Mr. Van Hollen, no. Mr. Gallego, no. Mr. Fetterman, no. Ms. Hirono, Ms. Hirono, no. Mr. Heinrich, no.
Yeas are 53, nays are 42. Joint resolution is passed. Under the previous order, the Senate will proceed to executive session and resume consideration of the following nomination, which the clerk will report.
Nomination, Department of Justice, Dean Sauer, Missouri, to be Solicitor General of the United States.
Question is on the nomination. Yeas and nays, there sufficient second? Appears to be. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Also Brooks, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt-Rochester, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Britt, Mr. Budd, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Moreno, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young. Senators voting in the affirmative: Barrasso, Bozeman, Britt, Capito, Cotton, Kramer, Curtis, Graham, Hoven, Husted, Kennedy, Langford, Lee, Moreno, Mullen, Murkowski, Ricketts, Schmidt, Scott of South Carolina, and Tillis. Senators voting in the negative: Also Brooks, Bennett, Blumenthal, Blunt Rochester, Cortez Masto, Fetterman, Gillibrand, Heinrich, Hirono, Kane, Peters, Sanders, Schatz, Slotkin, and Warner. Mr. McConnell. Yes. Mr. McConnell, aye. Mr. Sheehy, aye. Ms. Hassan, no. Mr. Kim, no. Mr. Wyden, no. Mr. Gallego, no. Mr. Reed, no. Mr. Scott of Florida, aye. Ms. Lummis, aye. Mr. Wicker, aye. Mr. Rounds, aye. Mr. Grassley, Mr. Grassley, aye. Mr. Marshall, aye. Mr. Haggerty, aye. Mr. King, no. Mr. Welch, no. Ms. Klobuchar, no. Ms. Ernst, aye. Mr. Kelly, no. Mr. Durbin, no. Mr. Booker, no. Mr. Cassidy, aye. Mr. Ossoff, no. Mr. McCormick, aye. Mr. Thune, aye. Mrs. Moody, aye. Mr. Whitehouse, no. Ms. Cantwell, no. Ms. Warren, no. Mrs. Hyde Smith, aye. Mr. Banks, aye. Mr. Markey, Mr. Markey, no. Ms. Baldwin, no. Ms. Collins, aye. Mrs. Blackburn, aye. Mr. Daines, aye. Mr. Cornyn, aye. Mr. Risch, aye. Ms. Smith, no. Mr. Merkley, no. Mr. Lujan, no. Ms. Rosen, no. Mr. Cruz, aye. Mr. Justice, aye. Mr. Hawley, aye. Mr. Warnock, no. Ms. Duckworth, no. Mr. Schumer, Mr. Schumer, no. Mr. Moran, Mr. Moran, aye. Mr. Sullivan, aye. Mr. Schiff, no. Mr. Johnson, aye. Mr. Young, aye. Mr. Hickenlooper, no. Mr. Tuberville, aye. Whipped cream and cherry and sprinkles. Mr. Coons. Mr. Coons, no. Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul, aye. Mr. Budd. Mr. Budd, aye. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Padilla, no. Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, no. Mr. Van Hollen. Mr. Van Hollen, no. Mrs. Fisher. Mrs. Fisher, aye.
The yeas are 52, the nays are 45, and the nomination is confirmed. Under the previous order, the motion to reconsider is considered made and laid upon the table, and the President will immediately be notified of the Senate's action.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to waive the mandatory quorum call with respect to the Oz nomination.
Without objection. The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Mehmet Oz of Pennsylvania to be Administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, signed by 17 senators.
By unanimous consent, the mandatory quorum call has been waived. The question is it the sense of the Senate that debate on the nomination of Mehmet Oz of Pennsylvania to be Administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services shall be brought to close? The yeas and nays are mandatory under the rule. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Ms. Baldwin. I got you, thanks. Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal. Ms. Blunt Rochester. Mr. Booker. Mr. Bozeman. Mrs. Britt. Mr. Budd. Ms. Cantwell. Mrs. Capito. Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis. Thanks, sir. All right, guys. Thank you. Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lemus, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Marino, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young, Senators voting in the affirmative: Barrasso, Budd, Cassidy, Cornyn, Crapo, Fisher, Husted, Justice, Lummis, McCormick, Moody, Moran, Paul, Ricketts, Scott of South Carolina, Sullivan, and Young. Senators voting in the negative: also Brooks, Baldwin, Blunt Rochester, Coons, Duckworth, Gallego, Gillibrand, Hickenlooper, Kane, Kim, Klobuchar, Schiff, Slotkin, Smith, and Van Hollen. Mr. Graham, aye. Mr. McConnell, aye. Mr. Grassley, aye. Mr. Merkley, no. Mr. Murphy, no. Mr. Daines, aye. Ms. Hassan, no. Mr. Booker, no. Mr. Reed, no. Mr. Kennedy, aye. Mr. Kelly, no. Mr. Mullen, aye. Mrs. Britt, aye. Mr. Marino, aye. Mr. Rounds, aye. Mr. Bennett, no. Mr. Wyden, no. Mr. Lee, aye. Ms. Cortez Masto, no. Mr. Johnson, aye. Ms. Collins, aye. Mr. Cotton, aye. Mr. Fetterman, no. Mr. Risch, aye. Mr. Langford, aye. Mrs. Shaheen, no. Ms. Hirono, no. Mr. Blumenthal, no. Mr. Warner, no. Mr. Cruz, aye. Mr. Whitehouse, no. Mr. Thune, aye. Mr. Lujan, no. Ms. Rosen, no. Ms. Cantwell, no. Mr. Schatz, no. Mr. King, no. Mr. Padilla, no. Mrs. Hyde-Smith, aye. Ms. Murkowski, aye. Mr. Haggerty, aye. Mr. Kramer, aye. Mr. Wicker, aye. Ms. Ernst, aye. Mr. Markey, no. Mrs. Capito, aye. Mrs. Blackburn, aye. Mr. Welch, no. Mr. Scott of Florida, aye. Mr. Curtis, aye. Ms. Warren, no. Mr. Durbin, no. Mr. Schmidt, aye. Mr. Banks, aye. Mr. Hawley, aye. Mr. Peters, no. Mr. Heinrich, no. Mr. Warnock, no. Mr. Marshall, aye. Mr. Ossoff, no. Mr. Schumer, no. Stephanie, is Murray's not coming for this one? Is Murray missing this one? Mr. Sheehy, aye. Mr. Tuberville, aye.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 45, and the motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, Department of Health and Human Services, Mehmet Oz of Pennsylvania, to be Administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
The Democratic whip is recognized.
Mr. President, anyone here remember how Donald Trump promised to end Russia's war on Ukraine in 1 day if he was elected? That's right, 1 day. Well, we're 73 days into his term with Russia still raining death and destruction upon the people of Ukraine. And instead of ending the war, Donald Trump has alienated and bullied our allies around the world, our allies. He insulted and blackmailed Ukrainian President Zelensky, who has led Ukrainians fighting bravely for more than 3 years. 46,000 Ukrainians have died in defense of their country. He's decimated low-cost soft power by gutting U.S. aid and Voice of America, giving away our influence and leadership to China and Russia, a move the head of Russian state TV, and get this quote, an awesome decision by Trump. We couldn't shut them down, unfortunately, but America did so itself. By turning our backs on the rest of the world, Donald Trump has undermined the promise of America as a beacon of democracy, freedom, and human rights. And all the while, Russian President Putin is laughing at us, watching with glee as America destroys its own leadership and credibility, something he could only have dreamed of in his former KGB days. If you don't believe me, read the New York Times columnist Tom Friedman. His recent column title tells the story. Quote, I don't believe a single word Trump